Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
Are you ready to discover what sets the best workplaces apart? We are so proud to introduce Culture from the Heart, our newest show launching in January. We'll be diving into conversations with the CEOs of heart-centered companies, leaders who built cultures that inspire and thrive.
And we're on a mission to find the heart-centered CEOs of America. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind award-winning workplaces and learn how these visionaries lead with purpose.
And you can help. Do you work for a company with a heart-centered CEO? We would love to interview them. You can nominate them now at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Look forward to the show in January, and if you have a CEO that's heart-centered, nominate them today at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, great seeing you. We got all kinds of things going on. We're knocking on 25, Darrell. It's been a phenomenal year. I know you'll agree. We're in for a treat today.
We are. We've got Jonathan Gardner in the house. And if you sell into large companies, you're going to really want to take some notes on this conversation. As you said, we're coming up on the end of the year. It's the holiday season. This is a great time to just say how thankful we are for you, our listeners, our friends, the community in the Selling from the Heart podcast. We hope you have a phenomenal holiday ahead. And Larry, I'm so grateful for this movement of authenticity that just keeps growing right here in this sales profession we all love.
You know, absolutely. It's been a great year. I enjoy getting to talk to not only sales leaders, but executives, salespeople on what's it really mean to them to sell from the heart. We get into great conversations. I just want to give a special shout out because I just recently had a conversation with a gentleman, stayed right next to you, Darrell, Frank Case. At Selling from the Heart, we do a lot of work in the food services world. Frank Case is a heart-centered leader leading the charge for his operating company in Texas. Frank, we appreciate you. Thank you for selling from the heart and leading from the heart.
Absolutely, Frank. A huge shout out, and just so grateful for all of you that are out there getting it done every single day, bringing your true self to the table. Just as you said on the cover of Selling from the Heart, this is how your authentic self sells you, and we see it happening all the time. Well, today we are thrilled to have Jonathan Gardner as our guest here on the podcast. He's the principal and founder of the Gardner Group. Jonathan brings a wealth of experience from his time at iconic brands that you may be familiar with, Larry, Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
And Dell and many other companies where he excelled in strategic sourcing and relationship management. If you're listening between the lines, he was involved in buying at that level. His expertise is now directed towards helping mid-sized companies navigate the complexities of selling into larger organizations. His firm equips sales and procurement teams with the tools and strategies necessary to optimize their margins and ensure profitability in these high-stakes relationships. Join us right now as Jonathan delves into effective strategies for mid-sized companies aiming to secure and succeed in deals with larger customers. Whether you're looking to enhance your approach to big ticket negotiations or you want to foster more profitable partnerships, Jonathan's guidance is going to provide you the guidance you need to thrive. Jonathan, welcome to the Selling from the Heart studios. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you, Darrell. Thank you, Larry, for having me on. And yes, I'm excited about this. Given what I do these days with my own companies, I'm learning how to be a sales guy. And so it really adds more texture and perspective to all of the hundreds, if not thousands of sales efforts I've seen over the years while working for those big companies in buying leadership roles.
I love it. Well, this is going to be a fascinating conversation. And as we get it started, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers. And that is, Jonathan, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
What it means to me to sell from the heart is you have to genuinely be interested in solving pain or helping your client or your customer exploit opportunities, whether those pain and opportunities are personal or professional. It's got to be about them, about the client, about the customer, about that individual and their team. And that's what selling from the heart is. And you notice I didn't talk about I and me much. And that's an important distinction.
Hey, you know what, Jonathan? I'm so glad you brought this up. And oftentimes here, at Selling from the Heart, we talk about this. When you shine the light on others, they will shine the light on you. When you're, as a salesperson, when you're involved, and we're going to get into a deep conversation about this, I know we are today, but when you shine the light on others, and those others could be multiple people in these buying teams, watch what starts to happen as they open up. But you can't shine the light on yourself. You got to shine the light on others to get others to open up.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think it's going to be extremely valuable for so many of our listeners. Jonathan, you spent many, many years on what we would call the other side of the table as a buyer. Definitely depends how you look at it. But I know for a lot of salespeople who are trying to sell into enterprise accounts, companies like Starbucks or Dell, that it can feel very, very daunting as a mid-size company trying to sell into some of these incredible giant corporations. Maybe just for a bit of context as we get started, tell us a little bit about your backstory and some of the experiences you had when you were at Starbucks and other companies like that.
Yeah, you bet. When I was in college, I liked back when you had paper tickets to football games. I liked going into the melee with $100, getting tickets, buying and selling, and then we'd go to the game. And so that love of commerce and how things people want, need versus and money, how that changes hands has kind of always been what floated my boat. So I went through international business school, law school, came out of that with these fancy degrees, but I needed to have my hands on stuff in companies that make things. And so I took a career path into General Motors, big automotive giant up in Detroit, cycled through a number of roles, but always coming back to the procurement or the sourcing of, in that case, automotive parts for the manufacturing. Spent time in manufacturing. And at GM, there was a process and a team for everything. So I learned all about process, rigor, maybe too much. When I got to Dell, procurement was a blood sport, full contact. It was what every procurement wanted it to be. And there were some hardcore and in some cases way too hardcore behaviors that were going on, but it was all about, volume was going up. Let's take advantage and drive price down. It was all about results. And so I got process at General Motors. I got results orientation drilled into me at Dell. And then I got a different beast entirely when I went to Starbucks. And certainly for most of the 9 years I was there, it was a relationship-oriented company. And before the show, we talked about how Larry's local barista sees him, gets him his coffee straight away, doesn't even have to order it. Well, the Starbucks internal culture was that way. And in some cases, the relationships with suppliers were that way as well. Well, I was brought in to bring a harder edge to the situation and help drive COGS down. And so I brought my process and my results, rigor and intensity. And along the way, I learned the importance of relationships, what true strategic relationships mean. So I'll give Starbucks and the great mentors and leaders I had there full credit for helping me kind of open my eyes up to the way that the rest of the world operated. And through that period of time, I learned how to lean maybe towards a true love model of buying and selling as opposed to the cheap thrills, which is what the tactical RFP reverse auction model feels like. I had I spent a bit of time at Albertsons, big grocery chain. That wasn't a great fit. So I moved on, opened up this company where we're doing what we talked on in the intro. So that's kind of the trajectory of my life, or my career, I should say. The piece that I'll pause with, pause after saying next will be this. What I've observed along the way is that sometimes small and medium-sized companies, they see, wow, the big brand, they're buying 1 billion widgets per month. We're going to get rich. And well, you might also spend 18 years and $500,000 in salary and other costs chasing a dream that's difficult to achieve. And so I think this segment can be really helpful to people to demystify the dream a little, and also shed some light on what it takes. And so my final comment here is we need to think about selling into these big companies as a team sport, and we need to go in with tempered expectations.
Oh, this is really good. And I know you're going to peel this thing back here in a moment, but I have to go back to 2 words that you've used. And you used it a couple minutes ago. And that was strategic relationship. And I'm hoping that you can dive into this. And here's where I'm going with this is quite often you've heard those words. In fact, I can guarantee you've heard them a gazillion times. Yes. From salespeople, from sales teams, from executives trying to sell into you. Hey, we're here to form a strategic relationship with you. Now, I'm keeping it simple, obviously, for time constraints on this. But where I'm hoping you can go with this is, what does a true strategic relationship look like through the lens of somebody like Jonathan Gardner, who's worked at these companies, who's spent 1 million times being in rooms full of salespeople saying, we want to build strategic relationships with you. Can you unpack this for us? I think you understand where I'm going with this.
Oh,
but
yes.
I keyed in on those 2 words, and I was just, I want you, it's a stroll down memory lane for me, so just bear with me. But I think you know where I'm going with this.
I do. So I'm going to answer you in 2 ways. One will be to kind of reflect on a post I recently put out on LinkedIn, which is when I learned within my skin what strategic relationship meant. So when I was at Dell, probably circa 2007, I did a 360 review evaluation, and 21 of 22 respondents said, Jonathan is very strategic. The one guy that said Jonathan is tactical was my boss. I didn't like his answer, so we talked in our one-on-one. Like, what do you mean? It can't be true. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, blah, blah, blah. And he said, take out your phone. So I did. It was a flip phone, flipped it open. Okay, show me the numbers of the VPs across the organization that you can call and that will either answer the call or call you right back. Crickets. This is my company. I'm internal. Okay, so you don't have any. Okay. So when you have a business problem to work on, what do you do when you need to talk to one of these VPs that you don't know? Oh, well, I get on their calendar and I go and I talk about the problem and I have my presentation and it goes on. So, okay, so you wait until you have a tactical problem before you approach a decision maker that can help get things done. Well, yeah, I don't want to waste their time. Okay, you're tactical and you're only ever going to be tactical until you get your head around the fact and do something with that you have to have relationships before it's time to solve a problem. And I think I resisted doing anything that for about 2 years. And then I finally got over myself and realized he was right. So that's the personal, the sitting in the room and and we want strategic relationship. Everybody says that. Let me tell you what it really means to a big industrial buying team. It's I've got to know that as an exec, VP, group VP, whatever, that I can call leader, my peer at that organization on a Saturday night. They'll answer and they'll get someone on their team to get back to me straight away. It's got to be that close. And frankly, they need to know that I'm willing to do the same thing. So it's reciprocal when we both know that we can rely on the other from a relationship standpoint. From a capability standpoint, the match, the company to company match is strategic when you're doing more than exchanging widgets for dollars. And so if you're selling, that's not just product, that's the widget, but are you bringing consumer insights, research and development, whether it's how salty the ham is or how fast the engine can go? You got to be bringing some other stuff that The texture of the relationship has to be richer. And to do that, that means the selling organization needs to have relationships with more than just the buyer, more than just the buyer's boss's boss, which would have been me, because we're just procurement, the department of no in many respects. You also need to be able to talk to people. If you are the seller, you need to have contacts in research and development or product development, whatever they call it, or engineering, but the technical side where they are defining products, making engineering changes, product changes. That's good. You also need to have really good, tight relationships lower in the organization than you think. And that would be literally with the people pushing purchase orders or perhaps pulling product into a warehouse. And I can unpack for you why both are important. But the fact of the matter is, what I'm describing is something that I picked up along the way called a power map. Think of it as who's who in the zoo. And you better have a power map where you know who you need to talk to solve different types of problems, to get information so that when you get to that leader-to-leader discussion, your sales leader, your company leader, whether it's a C-suite or head of sales or whatever, they've got rich context when they get on the phone with me, and they're not just trying to give me a cost up or cost down. Let me pause there, and I bet you're going to ask me to go deeper.
Darrell's head spinning. I know it is because I've been looking at his eyes.
8 different directions I'd like to go with this. And I knew this was going to be a rich conversation. And this is, this is almost for our listeners, a moment to pause and rewind and like just take some notes on what Jonathan just said, because it is so powerful. I know we're going to talk about the buying team, but I want to go back to this concept of tactical versus strategic. I just, as you were talking, I was thinking it was so interesting. We talk so much about sales tactics. We should talk more about strategy. And I love how tactics, in your story, were very reactive. There's a problem. That's a tactical salesperson. There's a proactive side of that about being strategic. I just want to put a highlighter on that because I was just blown away by that. But you talk about the team of people and developing relationships across that team. We coach to that at Selling from the Heart. We're big believers in knowing multiple people inside the account and what makes them tick and what's important to them, business and personal. Question I want to ask from an insider's view is, let me set it up this way. A lot of salespeople, maybe they have a relationship with a procurement person or a mid-level manager, and they're scared that if they go upstream or even sometimes downstream in the organizational chart, that it's going to upset their key contact. So in the sales meeting and working with their sales leader, they go, oh yeah, we're gonna move upstream. But they never do it because inside they're afraid that if I make that call to someone else in the organization, it's going to hurt me. I'm curious your perspective on that mindset that a lot of salespeople have.
There's merit to that mindset for sure. And that fear is born from bad experience.
True.
There are times when it would be inappropriate to put your tentacles into an organization. We'll talk about that. But if you do it right and you do it slowly over a longer period of time, like you don't do what I used to do and wait until you need the VP before you establish a relationship, you can get there. So let me tell you when it's not appropriate to do that, to work that. If you wait until an RFP, I'm sure we'll get a twitch out of sales communities just with that acronym. If you wait until there's an RFP to try to go up and go out, well, you have waited too long and you will potentially damage your chances. You will absolutely trigger a don't do that from the buying team. There's a point of distinction in there in that, here's a secret. All my former procurement brethren will hate me for it. Buyers have way, way less power than they want you to think they do, particularly if it comes to changing who's supplying a key line of business. Now, if it's net new, if you're not the incumbent, they've got quite a bit of power. But if you've been supplying widgets for years and years and years, then there's less of a light switch available that to that buyer than you might think. So I've kind of touched on when not to. Like, don't do it. Like, you can't talk to your neighbor when you're taking the test, kind of thing at school. The times when you should and you could, all along the way, you as a selling organization, as a sales team, you better have more than just quota carrying salespeople on that sales team. You want the technical account manager or the packaging engineer or the R&D person, with the white lab coat and the goggles on, or the tooling engineer, like whatever space you're in. You want the technical dude or dudette to get close with their counterparts. You want to train them on what to ask, but using vocabulary words that don't sound like they're trying to negotiate. They're looking for an angle. And so you want to help your customer be successful by learning using your extended team. And so those comments I'm talking now are kind of spreading horizontally across the organization. And then once again, not while the test is being administered, but it is normal. It is healthy, particularly if you're selling into you're providing a product for a key line of business, to inform the buyer that sales guy, my second level boss, insist on having, it's requiring me to set up a relationship so that your leadership has someone at the top of our organization that can get something done at a moment's notice, and that has more perspective, breadth, and frankly, power and economic capability to do things than I do. Therefore, you can ask politely, you can inform. The fact of the matter is, it is important to advise the buyer that that's taking place so they're not blindsided. And then when leader calls, don't do what Jonathan used to do circa 2007 and surprise them with hey, I need a price increase. It needs to be leader to leader. I'm Jonathan, you're Darrell. I wanted you to hear my voice, know my name. You've got my cell phone. Any time of day or night, call. By the way, like what's troubling you today? How's the relationship? Just listen. Ask those normal pain and opportunity questions. So that's my response on a horizontal and vertical basis. And don't do it when you're taking the test, but before and after is just is necessary. How does that work as a response to you?
Oh, this is good. By the way, everyone who's either listening or watching this, you just got a crash course education from Mr. Jonathan Gardner on this. So I'm listening to this, and it goes back to a couple things. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I interpreted what you're saying, looking at this through a sales lens. If I'm a salesperson, and I got some team members as well, I want to go back to the who's who in the zoo. By the way, I love this, but I want to early on map out who all's involved. And then early on, I want to start bridging all of these, right? Use the word tentacles a couple times. I want to start using these tentacles early on, not later on, but I want to use these early on to get to know who all these people are, even if I'm just reaching out to these people. Because if I do it early on, they might be receptive. If I do it later on, then I'm going to possibly upset the apple cart. And I don't know if I'm interpreting what you said correctly, but I'm telling you, if for all the listeners out there, I'd map this out, and then I would start just finding out how to start bridging all these introductions. Am I catching what you're throwing down,
Yes.
right?
You bet.
Okay.
Quick correction, a power map is nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet with name, title, what do we think their bonusable goal is? And then you do your normal CRM stuff. That's one thing. And I choose the word tentacles intentionally. If you're familiar with the biology or the anatomy of an octopus, even a little bit, you'll know the brain has like 65% of the processing power. But the ends of all the tentacles do their own thinking. And maybe they've got 5 or 10% each, whatever gets you to 100. So the fact of the matter is, an octopus is looking over here, but that hand extending out to the horizon is also picking up information. That's what I mean by tentacles. It's not this nefarious thing. It's be the octopus.
I love it. Well, hey, as we're wrapping up, just free flow from the mind of a procurement mindset. What else would you coach salespeople to do or not do when they're approaching larger accounts?
There's so many things. One is avoid assuming. It's easy. The term I think the cool kids use is ghosting. I send you an email, I don't get a response in the amount of time I think I should get one. Therefore, you are ghosting me. Therefore, my proposal wasn't good. Therefore, you're talking to my competitor. Therefore, I don't matter. No, they're probably just busy and rude. So that's kind of one thing. And the second, I've mentioned it before, I'll come back to, is procurement has power. And the way for procurement to maximize its power and benefit to their organization is you want to try to get to where we've all heard, well, if everything else is equal, what would you do? Well, procurement's job, there are a lot of really good procurement people out there, is to get it so everything else is equal, meaning the proposals and the options across the supply base are all equal, so that I can put it into my spreadsheet and make a numbers-based decision. So don't let yourself become equal.
Great advice.
And if you don't, it's so important that if you find yourself in that spot, and you're not equal, then, and this is episode 2 where your folks can contact me for conversation or engagement. If you're sure you're not equal and you're supplying into a key line of business, then you've got a lot more bargaining power or leverage than you think you do. And that's when we get all of our tentacles to come back to the octopus's head and figure out what our bargaining power really is and what our negotiation plan over the next 18 months is. I'll close back.
No, hey Darrell, sorry, we can't end. I got to ask this. And then you can wrap up. So my apologies to Darrell in the audience for this one, but because I have flashes of this, and we just have to just briefly. We welcome you to come back, but I got to ask this. I have to, because there's people thinking about this. There's sales coaches and trainers out there, and I'm going to leave it at that say avoid procurement at all cost. Just right. You guys got to figure out how to just avoid the procurement trap. In a couple minutes, and then Darrell, you can wrap up on this. In a couple minutes, you got to expand on what I just said, because there's a lot of people out there that are coached and trained to say, you know what? You got to avoid these people like the plague, right? They're going to take you down dark paths. You can't go there. You got to figure out how to avoid procurement, purchasing, whatever you want to refer. Your comments on that.
I understand totally the sentiment. I get it. Procurement is going to try to reduce the relationship to cheap thrills instead of true love. They want to get it to dollars and widgets. So you put it in the spreadsheet, you compare price, and you win. That is, I'd say, like a C and B player procurement person's objective. So I get the sentiment. It's flawed. Trying to think of what's appropriate to say to you. I'll tell you this.
Dude, I didn't mean to stump you. You just
no,
your heart and
there's
then
a
go.
Time years ago where there's a little spot of skin I didn't like on my head, and I let it drag on, and it turned out it was skin cancer, and I got it cut off, and I had a scar, and it wasn't fun. I could have ignored that problem, but I didn't. So
yeah.
The respectful retort I would give to that individual is treat this as an and, not an or. Your procurement interface is a player for you to talk to. If you only talk to procurement, you're going to have a problem. If you ignore procurement, you're going to have a problem, because you might win that first battle, but let me tell you, it could turn out to be a Pyrrhic victory, because as time goes on, that procurement person will probably get upset. And if they've got time, and if this is a big enough deal to them, they will find ways to whittle away your position. So I didn't ignore my spot of skin cancer. I dealt with the pain. I got it cut out. It's over. I'm just as beautiful as you see today as a result. But you got to deal with it. And I'm not saying that procurement skin cancer. What I am telling you is that don't let it be a problem. Don't be afraid of it. Instead, engage.
Fantastic advice. Well, Jonathan, I know as we're wrapping up, many of our listeners are thinking, how can I get more Jonathan Gardner in my life?
Wow. It's great to hear that from someone. Because my dog can't talk. So a couple of ways. My website is www.jgardnergroup.com. You can email me. It's Jonathan at jgardnergroup.com. And I don't mind giving you my cell phone number right now. It's 512-426-9340. Happy to talk to you. And if I can help you out, I will. And if I can't, I'll see if I know someone that can.
All right. So good. Hey, Jonathan, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for dropping pearls of wisdom on us.
My pleasure.
Larry, that was a practical conversation. This is practical as a conversation as we've ever had on Selling from the Heart. There were so many nuggets. This is one to listen to several times and really get inside the mind of a procurement person. And I think that Jonathan brought some things up that I've never thought of before and that I think are going to be extremely helpful to our friends.
Yeah, you know what I love about this? This is the first time we actually brought procurement into a conversation here at Selling from the Heart, which is good. So hopefully you guys grab some nuggets from this. What I'd ask everyone to do is, if you got some nuggets from this, go out and share it. Share with other people what you learned on the Selling from the Heart podcast. Let us know. And I know, Darrell, we're going to ask for reviews on this one because I think everybody needs to go back and watch this one.
Yeah, go back, rewind, take notes. Hey, thank you to everybody. We said it at the top of the show. We're right here in the middle of the holiday season. It just is a great time to just be grateful for everything that's going on. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for this community at Selling from the Heart. And not only are we grateful, just around the corner is a new year, and we have some incredible episodes coming up. Just wait. It's going to be so much fun. But would you do us a favor? As Larry said, would you take what you're learning and share it? The other thing that's extremely helpful and more helpful than you know is if you would leave a review on this podcast. It helps us spread this word of authenticity and trust right here in this sales profession we all love.
Yeah. And at the beginning of this year, I made a promise to everyone out there. We're going to bring new, fresh voices throughout 2024 to the podcast. I think we fulfilled that. Stay tuned because we're going to bring new, fresh voices and some new ideas in 2025.
Well, till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust. Be strategic in how you go after large accounts. And most of all,
sell from the heart.